Hey folks, yes, it's really me. You don't know me, but it's really me. My name is Jeff Besson. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm with Intuiface and I'm joined by Bianca Narwanova. Bianca, say hi.
Hi, hi everyone. Very excited to be here. Thanks for tuning in.
We are going to spend the next 45 minutes discussing computer vision and the world of digital signage. It's the result of a marriage between Intuiface and SIghtcorp. We'll give you some background information first. We'll do a little bit of demonstration, talk about various use cases. We've got a very meaty webinar to run through. I'm going to kick things off, but just a little bit of table setting. Although this is about computer vision, we can't see you. What we can do, though, is see all the questions you enter in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar toolbar on the right-hand corner of your screen. So if at any point you have a question, type those questions in. We'll answer them on the fly. And Bianca and I are going to hang out at the end of the webinar to answer your questions live. So a lot of information. Don't be shy if you have any questions. We will stick around at the end as well. That being said, let's get started. What I'd like to do is begin by discussing the broader notion of digital signage and its intersection with computer vision. And perhaps it's best to start by talking about traditional digital signage. This is a physical space kind of thing. So typically it's visual. I mean, there can be auditory components as well, but it's visual communication in a physical space. One usually doesn't talk about the mobile devices and websites when considering digital signage. Traditional digital signage is visual communication using electronic display technology controlled by some sort of infrastructure. It's a broadcast medium. It pushes stuff out there, right? And you can use it to inform, promote, advertise, influence, educate, entertain. Lots of possible use cases. It's a push, right? It is unaware of where it is, certainly in real time. It doesn't know who's looking at it or where it is in real time. It could be something programmed in advance, but it's not really reacting to anything local. It is broadcasting something, and obviously we all know what that looks like, right? So this is a big example, but it could just be a small sign in a store. That's traditional broadcast digital signage. Let's expand our understanding now and talk about interactive digital signage, because even computer vision is a type of interaction. Interactive digital signage is about audience engagement. It is not just visual communication, it's engagement. It's a give and take with some particular audience. It depends on who you want to target, right? It combines that display technology with interaction technology. We'll get to the types of interaction. Doesn't have to be touch, lots of different kinds. There's still some sort of software infrastructure, and there's some level of data analytics monitoring what's happening on that screen in that environment, because there's something to measure. When it's broadcast digital signage, there's really nothing direct to measure. At best, it's secondary measurements. With interactive digital signage, there's lots of stuff you can measure. So back to this notion of interactivity, there's the sort of active, intentional interaction. Touch, gesture, voice. I am intentionally expressing my interests to the technology, and that technology is reacting to me. That's an explicit, active kind of interaction. But there's also lots of different kinds of passive interaction. Computer vision is one of those, and sensors are another example. Maybe it's motion detection. The person didn't intentionally do movement in front of the sensor to trigger something. They just happened to walk by and it triggered the video on the screen. And so this is an example of interactivity in a variety of different environments. Here it is. Is this it? I was going to play it. Well, never mind. I was going to play a little video for you. But the idea is that this is humans touching a screen, or the camera scanning them, or that sort of thing. So we talked broadly about the different kinds of interactivity and how they can really enhance the levels of engagement you can achieve with digital signage. This webinar is about computer vision and how Intuiface and SIghtcorp can enable you to adopt computer vision in a very easy and simple way and rapidly deploy it. Let's take a closer look at computer vision. I'm going to turn it over to Bianca, SIghtcorp's expert.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so why should you use computer vision for digital signage? When looking at traditional out-of-home advertising, there are different ways to measure the effectiveness. And this is usually done through methods like surveys or mobile and Wi-Fi tracking, or using car traffic data, and even ticket sales or transactional data from point of sales. And while this data is very good at giving you the understanding of the overall picture, the bigger picture, it cannot be directly used to attribute views and impressions to a specific campaign that's running on the screen. The audience measurement technology does not rely on tracking devices that are carried by individuals, but it can analyze those individuals in an anonymous way, and through using cameras that are attached to the screens, to see if these individuals have actually viewed the ad content and for how long. And so with this methodology, it's easier to correlate the views with a certain campaign, and doing so with high accuracy as well. So computer vision basically brings the online ad performance capabilities to the offline space by giving advertisers the data to answer the questions of what audience could I have reached and what audience did I actually reach with the ads.
Thanks, Bianca. And I want to reiterate sort of an implied point here. It is anonymous, right? So this is not about who they are. It's what kind of people are they in terms of gender, in terms of age, and their level of attention, all things that we're going to get to later in this webinar. I just want to stress the anonymity aspect. All right, so as I said, we're sort of building up to a crescendo here, which is Intuiface is a specialist in the delivery of interactive digital experiences. SIghtcorp is a specialist in the use of computer vision and deep learning for real-time face analysis. You're getting the computer vision from SIghtcorp, you're getting the interactive digital content from Intuiface, and we've brought them together. Traditionally, if you wanted to incorporate computer vision in your digital signage, it took a lot of development effort and possibly some level of outsourcing. Certainly was a complicated endeavor, and typically also very deployment specific. It was for a very specific use case and a very specific set of content. And with Intuiface and SIghtcorp, it could be for any audience, in any environment, for any purpose, and you're not writing code to collect all of this information that can be used in a variety of ways. And I've got a cute little diagram that will show you some of those ways. So if you look at the diagram on screen right now, let's first get a sense for it. Here in the upper left, you have SIghtcorp DeepSight. That's the deep learning engine that is taking the camera feed and learning things about the audience. So you've got the DeepSight toolkit in the upper left. Here in the center, you have the Intuiface experience, the thing you created with Intuiface. That's connected to the display, which is on the left. So the display is connected to player. Player is driving the content on the display. It is taking data from DeepSight. On the bottom, it's also taking other contextual data. Intuiface can read information from just about any data source you can think of, anything in the cloud. So not only do you have all of the data coming from SIghtcorp DeepSight about the audience, but you can have all this other information coming in at the same time, such as weather, location, point of sale, what are they buying, all of this additional context about what these people are doing and how they're characterized. So you have the computer vision data coming in, you've got the contextual data coming in, and you know what's on screen. You have all this stuff that you're driving. There are some really interesting use cases here. So content triggering. That means Intuiface can take the SIghtcorp DeepSight data and dynamically react to the audience and show specific content as a result, right? I am seeing mainly 30-year-old females, so I want to trigger content for 30-year-old females. So that content triggering arrow represents a really interesting use case, which is dynamically reacting to the audience, tailoring the content for that audience. The other really interesting use case is measuring the effectiveness of all that content, which brings us to the right side of this diagram. Not only can I react to the audience, but I can measure their levels of engagement, how interested they are in particular content. If you're even remotely familiar with the world of out-of-home advertising and advertising in general, you might be familiar with the notion of views and impressions and dwell time. This is measuring how long people are looking at stuff, how many people looked at it. And all of that information can be collected by Intuiface, aggregated together, and uploaded to Intuiface Analytics. So not only can you react to the data to customize content, but you can collect information, aggregate it, and make it available for analysis to determine the level of effectiveness of your content. How many people actually engaged with it? What level of interest was there? All of which is very interesting information for iterating through that deployment and possibly making some improvements to what you've done and what you're advertising. Which even takes us to monetization of that advertising, which for longtime Intuiface users is probably a novel concept. So that's the big picture. We understand there's a mix of audiences here in the webinar. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time giving you an Intuiface overview. If you know Intuiface, relax. Then I'll hand it over to Bianca. She'll give you a SIghtcorp deep sight overview so you'll get a better understanding of how that works. And then we'll do a demonstration. So let me just spend a little bit of time on Intuiface. Intuiface has been around for quite a few years. We're version 6.6 right now. It is a no-code platform dedicated to the creation, integration, deployment, and analysis of interactive digital experiences. It's about greatly simplifying your ability to deploy interactive digital experiences. That's experiences for the physical space. You already know we're defining interactivity fairly broadly. It doesn't have to be touch. There are multiple ways of interacting with a digital system. That could be human machine or machine to machine, and all of it falls underneath the Intuiface umbrella, and you never write a line of code. That's the point. It's easy to adopt, easy to deploy. And I'm going to just touch on some of these bullet points. You can create very responsive workflows that react to events and do something as a result. And one example is, real-time audience data, where Deep Sight is telling your running experience, I'm seeing 40-year-old men, and there's a workflow that says, if I see that, then show an image, play a video, do whatever. So it's very easy to code without writing code. You control every single pixel of the design. You're not buying templates or pre-built apps. It's your media, your layout, your storyboard. As I mentioned previously, you can connect to any cloud-hosted data source, business logic, connected object among the Internet of Things. Your experiences don't have to live in isolation, and it all happens on the edge. This is all on the edge. There's no cloud aspect to Intuiface. It's all running local. You have lots of different platforms to choose from for running your application. And the beauty of the integration with SIghtcorp is SIghtcorp can be on any Windows or Linux device out there where the camera is, and Intuiface can be running independently on any of these platforms and getting that computer vision data. There is a very extensive analytics capability for visualizing the collected data. We're not just about data collection, we're also about visualizing it, and I'll touch on that in a moment. And for those of you dealing with large IT organizations, maybe you are one, maybe you work with them, we are ISO 27001 certified. That's the information security standard. It basically means that if we touch it, it's safe. That's the idea. I did mention this is not about particular templates or pre-built apps. It is vertical independent. We have something called Intuiville. You can visit Intuiville on our website. It is a look at about 70 different scenarios involving Intuiface, involving interactivity across a variety of verticals. These are not things we sell. These are examples of things you can do. There could have been other industries here. We picked these because they were the most common ones among our install base, but you can build anything you want for any audience in any environment. These are just really cool examples that give you a sense of what one can do with Intuiface and interactivity. I'm not going to go through this whole diagram, but I want you to understand at a big picture how things come together, because remember, I mentioned player. That earlier diagram, I mentioned player. That's on the right-hand side of this diagram. That's the runtime. So that's the thing running on the edge. That's running on the devices in your store, in your museum, at the trade show, whatever. You could be even a mobile sales force, right? So player is the runtime that's on the edge. It's on that device in the field. On the left is composer, which is the editor. You don't build things in player, you build them in composer. So you create the experience in Composer, you run them in Player. When I give you a demo in a few minutes, we're going to be looking at Composer. In the middle is a cloud-hosted infrastructure that facilitates things like remote deployment. It facilitates things like analytics, where all of the players are independently collecting data, pushing it to the cloud, and it's in the cloud where you can access that data and create your charts and your dashboards. So this whole cloud-based infrastructure, you don't have to use, but it adds a lot of additional capability. And the bottom of this diagram broadly represents the ability of Intuiface to communicate with the cloud, the business logic, the device. Could be out there, in the ether, could be on a local device, but it's this broad notion of interacting in real time with the back office, with the cloud, which ensures that your experiences are truly up to date, in real time, on demand. You're showing things as they need to be shown in that moment, not how you built it a long time ago. I have talked about analytics, and I just wanted to reiterate again that this is not simply about we're collecting data and dumping it into Excel. This is a full-fledged chart creation capability, a drag and drop tool with over 30 different chart types, a lot of customization options that then enables you to take your various charts, organize them as a dashboard, publish them to the web. If you're an agency or an integrator, maybe this is a service you provide to your clients, and each client has a set of dashboards published to the web. If you are the end user, then you're doing this for yourself, for your boss, to keep an eye on your deployment, to identify trends, learn about your audience, find ways to improve the success of your deployment. So all of this falls under the Intuiface umbrella, and it helps us take advantage of the beautiful computer vision data collected by SIghtcorp, which is my excuse now to turn it over to Bianca. So Bianca, here you go.
Yes, our turn. Yeah, can you go to the next slide, please? All right. So yeah, at SIghtcorp, we focus on developing audience measurement solutions, mainly for digital signage, digital out of home, and retail analytics. And our goal has always been to create very easy to use software solutions that are built from scratch by our team of very talented engineers. And we offer the most advanced AI algorithms that are based on the latest scientific research, which translates into highly accurate data outputs, which doesn't require high-end devices to run on. That's very important within our industry. And we offer our products with very simple licensing and for an affordable price as well. Next, please. Yep. So at SIghtcorp, we highly respect and value the privacy of every individual. And as such, all of our solutions and products are built with privacy by design. And what that means is that all the data processing and analysis happens locally, so it's offline, and without storage of any images or video. Our solutions don't collect any personally identifiable data, and we also apply an extra layer of face blurring. So that's what we see on the slide here as an example, which is also called privacy by default, which is used to protect the identity of the analyzed audiences while still collecting all the essential information and data in the background. We also provide a full GDPR documentation package for our partners and their end users with ready-to-use templates that can be used for privacy policies. And this is to ensure a smooth, large-scale rollout that complies with all the local regulations and, of course, respects the individual privacy as well. Next, please. So here's the process explained in a bit more detail. So the way anonymous video analytics works is that an image comes in through the camera, it's immediately blown up into pixels, and that happens within milliseconds, and it's turned into a kind of number representation of the image, which is then analyzed by DeepSight. The image itself is discarded, and all that is left is the raw audience data, which basically consists of zeros and ones. And so this cannot be used to identify or trace anybody back from the data. The raw data is then aggregated and sent to, in this case, Intuiface Analytics for visualization. And in addition to all of this, there's also the face blur functionality that's added on top of the video, as we saw earlier. Next, please. So when we look at the online advertising industry, online marketeers are very used to making performance-based and data-driven decisions when using platforms like AdWords or Facebook ads. And they're able to apply all kinds of optimizing techniques to increase their return rates and their conversion rates for their ads. And so in the fast-growing domain of digital out-of-home and digital signage, we still see a lot of room for using data to understand the campaign performance and to increase the view-through rates and the gaze-through rates. With video analytics, we're bridging this gap of insufficient data collection around the performance in the real world with accurate audience insights. And we're also bringing the targeting capabilities to basically enable advertisers to optimize their campaigns in the same way that they do in the online space. Now, we think that out-of-home advertising should be no different than the online, so we like to say that we bring the Google Analytics to the offline world. Next, please. So now let's take a look at the type of data that you can expect to collect with the audience measurement software. So there's usually two main uses for the audience measurement, the type of data, and that is reporting and triggering. And if we look at the first column on the left, then we can see all the data that's collected for each piece of content. And so the ad performance metrics include the people count, which is all the people that have passed the screen. The industry term for this is also OTS, opportunity to see. Then we have number of impressions and viewers. So basically using head pose, we can understand in which direction the faces are looking, the people are looking. So we can distinguish between if they're only looking in the direction of the screen, so that would be impressions, or if they're actually looking at the content, so that would be viewers. And then we can also measure the viewing time, so how long they're detected as viewers, and the impression time applies the same, so how long they're detected as impressions. And we can also collect information around their demographic profiles, so that's in terms of age and gender. And all of these metrics can be used to accurately measure the audience reach of the network, so how many people have passed the screen and how many had the opportunity to actually see the content, and to qualify and quantify the audience segments, so in terms of the demographic profiles, and also to measure the effectiveness of the content with the time that the audience and the viewers have spent looking and engaging with it. The second use case for audience data is delivering highly targeted content, we already mentioned. And this is at the right time and to the right people. So brands and advertisers can translate their target audience types into specific triggers and show specific ads when somebody from that target audience is detected by the camera. So it's basically the same thing that happens with online ads with targeting, but it's even more powerful in this case because you can actually measure the true viewing behavior after the ad is shown. And creative agencies can also create very interactive experiences that, for instance, react to metrics like smile or the mask detection or the head movement. So the possibilities in this case are really endless. Next slide. And with regards to the type of devices that we can run on, it's fairly flexible. We do prefer Intel hardware, and we suggest to use at least an i5 of 6th generation and up. You can get these devices really easily from partners like Simply NUC. And also any 2D USB and IP camera works. And the player can be connected to any type of digital screen. So again, like Jeff said, it doesn't have to be interactive screen or a touch screen. And in general, yeah, we're very close to our hardware supplier. So if you want to know which device, which camera, which screen is best for your project, you can reach out to them directly or reach out to us, and we'll definitely help you out. Next slide. Or I'll hand it over to the demo. Yes.
Thank you, Bianca. Yeah, so we're going to do a little bit of a product demo. I will going to start by configuring the DeepSight toolkit. It's that slick little piece of software that processes all that data without slowing down the machine. It's pretty impressive. I'm going to shut off my camera for the webinar so I can use it for DeepSight. So let me shut off my camera here and then start it here in DeepSight. It takes about 5-10 seconds to get going, so I'll wait till it gets started. So on the same PC, I am running DeepSight and Intuiface. I'm doing both. Hello, now you can see me in DeepSight, and it says I'm a 30-year-old male, which is 100% true. This is so accurate. Good enough. Actually, if I do this, it gets kind of worse. So this is now, DeepSight is doing its magic. It's generating data based on its impression of who I am. If there's multiple people, you'd see multiple faces. And all of that information is now being collected. I'm going to demonstrate this experience running in Intuiface. Then we'll talk about how it works. This experience, this is a demographic triggered ads with audience metrics. These are ads triggered by information learned by DeepSight. This is driving content based on the audience, reacting in context. Let me just play it. It is already configured to communicate with DeepSight. If you look in the bottom left, there's a little timer. It's counting down to 0. It doesn't have to be there. It's very convenient because when it hits 0, it's going to look at me and say, oh, that's a very handsome male. I'm going to show an ad for handsome men. I'm going to block the camera now. Oh, and let me, so you can see me at the same time. I wanted you to see that. So the camera couldn't see me. So it went to the generic ad. Now it sees me again, and it goes back to the guy. And I'll block the camera one more time, and it's going to say, "Well, I don't see anybody interesting." And so 1, 0. Now we're back to the generic ad. This is a very simple example of reacting in real time to the audience. I'm an audience of 1. This experience is not limited to an audience of 1. It could be an audience of many. All right, so let's take a look at how the heck this thing is done. What you're looking at now is Intuiface Composer. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not about teaching you how to use Composer. This is just giving you a sense of how everything works. So you have in the center here a set of scenes. There's the general crowd scene, and then every other scene is for a particular combination of age and gender. The idea is that, for example, if it is an adult male, then they're going to see this ad. All right, that's how it works. When the experience starts, if you see my mouse here, you see where it says start countdown? When the experience starts, it's going to begin collecting a whole bunch of data from SIghtcorp. Guess I can put my camera back on. Let me stop DeepSight so we don't need to see that. And we can start here. Okay. So again, looking at Composer, we're going to start, basically we're asking DeepSight, please start collecting data for us, and it's going to start a countdown that is, it's at 10 seconds right now. You saw that it could be different. When the countdown reaches 0, then we're telling DeepSight, stop collecting session data. So every time we show an ad, we start collecting session data, and when the timer runs to 0, we stop collecting session data. So the session data is specific to the period of time during which the ad was shown. And whenever you tell DeepSight to stop collecting session data, then it triggers something in Intuiface. See this trigger? Session data received. When we tell DeepSight to stop collecting session data, DeepSight tells Intuiface, hey, I've got some session data for you. It's calling this trigger, okay? When this trigger is triggered, then we're recording information. See this log event? It's taking all the information from SIghtcorp. You can see it on the bottom right here. All this information from SIghtcorp about the people and the gender split and the age split and all the attention and all that stuff is being packed into a data point that's going to be uploaded for analytics. And it's specific to this particular ad. This is session data. It is ad data. It's also going to reset the timer. It's going to start collecting some data. See this simulate a tap? So this is pretty interesting. Let's move this out of the way. It's a little trick that we do where you can have a single trigger have multiple conditionals. It's a kind of a neat trick. So when the countdown reaches 0, then we create a data point, we store data for analytics, and we're tapping this button. Why are we tapping this button? Well, look on the right. There's multiple ifs. If, and look in the bottom right, there's more than one person, more than 0 people, and more than 55% of them are women. And this is about, what is this? This is average age, is less than or equal to some threshold that we can decide. Then we're going to call that a young female. More than 0 people, more than 55% female, older than a certain age, then go to the scene, young female. And what we have are a whole bunch of different demographic combinations. This is adult female. That's the one I opened. Then we'll go a different one. For example, this one is young male. And so here the conditional is more than 0 people, more than 55% male. See, male percent. We're taking all the information from DeepSight, choosing the parameters that we feel are most relevant to the audience we want to target, and creating a set of conditions, right? Now, this is programming, but anybody can do it, right? And you can have as many conditions as you want. In this case, the result of these conditions is a go-to scene to show a particular ad. And every time you go to a scene, you're starting a new session. Every time you go to a scene, you start a new session. So every 10 seconds is a new session, which is proof of play. So you can actually measure not only how many people engage, what were the gender splits, were they wearing masks? You can do that. But because you're counting sessions, you know how often each ad was shown, you have proof of play. So again, the objective here is not to show you how to use Intuiface, it's to show you the logical steps, starting with the real-time data and turning it into an experience that reacts to that audience and shows the right kind of information. This particular experience will be made available within the next week. There will be a variant of this experience that doesn't trigger ads, it is simply a playlist. So it is the analytics side without the dynamic triggering. We've taken out dynamic triggering, it's just a playlist and it rotates through a bunch of ads. It's completely ignorant of the audience, but you still have DeepSight watching that audience, measuring the level of engagement. So you'll have demographic triggered ads, you'll have an automated playlist, both experiences, you can collect audience metrics, and there'll even be a dashboard. We're creating a dashboard so you can visualize this data. And there's another experience that is specific to face masks. So rather than age and gender, it's are they wearing a face mask? And in light of the time, maybe I won't show that right now, but conceptually it's the same idea. The condition is, not is it a 30-year-old female, the condition is, are they wearing a mask? Yes, no. If they're not wearing a mask, you show one message that says, stop, please don't come in. If they are wearing a mask, you can say, thanks for wearing a mask, come on in. When you look at it, you'll say, okay, I understand how that's done, that's pretty simple. In all cases, it's about manipulating this data to create the conditions that are amenable to showing particular content. It's actually not hard. If you're new to Intuiface, it's a lot of unfamiliar concepts. But the beauty is at no point did we write code. There's no code writing here at any point. Well, we did to build Intuiface, but you are not writing any code, and you Intuiface people know that. I'm now going to turn it back to Bianca because we have an opportunity to talk about a runtime bundle we put together to make it really easy for you guys to deploy these experiences. So Bianca?
Yeah, so yeah, everything that you have just seen is conveniently packaged into a ready-to-use audience analytics bundle, which also is readily available for purchase, actually online, so on the Intuiface website. Please go check it out after the webinar. Can you go to next? And what we have in the bundle is the DeepSight license, a player license, and analytics license. So all of these are valid for 1 year and for one player or one device. So each of the screens, if you have one camera and one player, will need a separate bundle license. And then there's also the pre-configured experiences that we just saw. Well, we saw one, but then there's also the face mask experience. And then we also have the template dashboards, as Jeff mentioned, and these can be used for running the predefined experiences. And as Jeff said, they do allow some customization, like custom logo or idle text or other imagery, but the triggers and the data tracking pretty much are fixed as a sample. So in case you want to build a new experience from scratch and you just want to use the audience measurement based triggers and reporting, you will also need to get a composer license. So that's the little note there. So it's not included in the bundle. And the other items that also need to be sourced separately are the player, so the hardware device, the camera, and the screen. But for all of these, you can refer back to our partners that I mentioned earlier, and they can help you out with the right fit. Please, next. And yeah, so now again, recapping the type of experiences that are available. So we have the face mask detection experience that has the stop and go messages that react to the face mask detection that's done in real time. It's analyzed in real time by DeepSight, and you can customize the messages itself, but the experience is already pre-made, so just the logos are necessary. And then we have the second experience, which is more context-based. So here we're using the demographic trigger, so the age and gender, to show different ads, and also collecting the performance metrics basically on top of each of the content types. And here again, some customization is possible, but you don't have to create the triggers yourself. That's already predefined. Yeah, and now we'll talk about some of the scenarios of where you can actually use the bundle. So yeah, with regards to the use cases, they're usually within the signage industry, there's two major types of screens and types of communication. So you have the one-to-many communication that can be screens in shopping malls or airports, any crowded area with basically standard advertising screens, and more one-to-one communication. So that can be a self-service kiosk, for instance, in a quick service restaurant, or a wayfinding kiosk in a mall again. So with the displays that target a large audience in the shopping mall, let's say, the most important piece of the puzzle is answering the question of how many people have passed, how many people could have viewed the screen, how many people actually viewed the screen and the ad, for how long, and what was their demographic breakdown. Those are the standard data points that you want to collect. And because these screens can be placed in very high traffic and crowded areas, you want to cut through the noise to understand the true viewing metrics and link them back to the specific creative that was run, instead of just working with more general traffic trends, because those they don't really relate to content. So already at the very beginning of when media owners onboard a new network, so basically a collection of digital screens, they need to be able to understand the basic questions of how many people can I reach with this network, what kind of audience profiles can I reach, and how much I'm going to charge for this audience before they can even offer this type of advertising space to buyers. And all of these questions can be answered with this solution, this bundle, especially when the network owner can prove that they are able to deliver a very targeted audience. Their cost per 1,000 impressions, so the CPM, will be higher as well. And brands will be willing to pay more for such space because, for one, it's targeted to their specific audience, and for second reason is because they will also get the post-campaign performance data when advertising on an audience measurement enabled network. And so if we look back at the traditional measurement techniques that we discussed in the beginning, these can give you the number of devices that are near the screen, but they cannot track the actual viewing behavior and not in real time. So that can only be done with video analytics. But of course, it's not to say that these techniques should be replaced or not used at all. We believe that there is a synergy between computer vision and all these other technologies that when used in the right way, so in combination, they can really give you a full picture of the brand exposure to the audience and the customers. And so if we look at the second use case, the more interactive applications, the assumption is usually that the display is either used by one or a couple people at the time. So there are many possibilities for optimizing the content to a specific buyer persona. So if we take the example of a QSR again, so quick service restaurant, there's normally a generic ordering flow that's applied to all users. The digital messages are not targeted at a specific audience, and only very simple POS data is collected per transaction, which is not linked back to the customer profile. With the real-time anonymous audience measurement, the fast food chain can optimize their entire checkout flow to the customer type. So they can A/B test with different ordering of items, for instance. They can use different call to actions that work for different personas, and they can also show different upsells, so throughout the checkout journey, that drive larger basket sizes when they're targeted to the specific user. And when combining all this data with the transactional data, so from the point of sales, the QSR can then create buyer personas for which they will know their transactional value, their checkout speeds, also their conversion rates, and even the cart abandonment rate per customer type. And all of this trend data can then be used to optimize the offering in either real time through the checkout, and also for creating in general a better customer journey for that specific customer. Next, please. All right, so yeah, to bring it into context for the media owners and the advertisers, and also show how the flow works in a little bit more detail. So as a first step, of course, we have the digital screen, which is owned by the media owner. Then there's the audience, which approaches the screen. And then we have the brand content, which is provided by the buyer or the advertiser. And this content can either follow a static predefined playlist, so just running on a loop, or it can use, again, triggers, which adapt the message to the audience at hand, which is analyzed by DeepSight. Then, of course, we have the camera as well, which is running DeepSight and collects all the information in real time. And it sends it to, in an aggregated format, to Intuiface Analytics. And then the Intuiface and the dashboard can be used by both the media owner and the advertiser. The media owner can use the dashboard to understand the reach of the network and the types of audiences that they reach. And since they're also able to give relevant media metrics back to the advertiser, they can also charge for this type of data. So it's like an extra, it's an upsell. The advertiser can use the dashboard for comparing effectiveness for each campaign, and to use this data to optimize messaging through A/B testing, again, to increase the visibility of the brand, and for creating as well clear KPIs for other campaigns, so for future purposes. Next.
Thanks, Bianca. I mean, the people may not be familiar with all of the different ways one can incorporate computer vision in a public, physical space digital signage deployment. They're really innumerable. Understanding the customer journey, maximizing the value of your deployment, tailoring content to the audience. And this doesn't have to just be about advertising. It could just be about, which exhibition to show in a museum, right? And all of this information, get my camera back on. Camera's not working anyway. All of this information can be acquired through DeepSight and incorporated in your Intuiface experience without writing any code. I mean, it's really very simple. And I think that one of the reasons that in a good part of the marketplace, there's been some hesitancy to adopt computer vision is because it just was considered to be hard. It just wasn't easy to do. And with Intuiface, it is not hard to do. With SIghtcorp, it is very easy to get the data. We're really excited about this joint solution. for more information. So we're going to turn it over to Q&A. There's been lots of good questions. We're going to answer some of those out loud, take some more questions. If you want more information, both SIghtcorp and Intuiface have gone out of the way to make sure that we have lots of information about the bundle and about how our solutions work. For more about the Audience Analytics bundle, you can go to intuiface.com/audience analytics. On the SIghtcorp website, head over to their Intuiface page. Either way, that's sort of your first step to getting a better understanding of what's in the bundle, how the solutions work together, and then you can deep dive to your heart's content. There's lots of really cool information out there. That's it for the main content. I want to thank everyone for joining. We've had a ton of really good questions, and a colleague of mine, Seb Monnier, has been answering them like a madman. Seb, I don't know if there's some that stand out for you. We'll also open it up to other questions. Remember, use that questions panel in the GoToWebinar toolbar. That's where we'll see your questions. We've had a lot of good ones, Seb. I don't know if any stand out for you right now.
Yeah, actually, thanks everybody for keeping me busy while Jeff and Bianca were doing this presentation. Bianca, actually, there's one for you. I wanted to keep this one for you to answer live. How is a viewer identified? Is it pupil tracking?
Yes, I've seen a few kind of around the same domain. So for the viewing behavior, we're using, because we're doing face analysis, so everything's related to the face, and we're using head position. So that's basically in the yaw and then pitch. So in these angles of the head, and that way we can understand which direction the head is pointed. So it's not using eye tracking or other technologies, really using the face. And I also answered another question. I'll just say it out loud again, that when I was saying that there's a difference between impressions and viewers, it's basically using a different threshold for this viewing angle. So the impression, has a wider viewing cone, so more people can, if they're looking in the direction of the screen, they will be detected as impressions. And then viewers have a smaller viewing cone, so those, if people are really looking in the direction of the screen, the camera, the software will understand that they are actually viewing. And this also is adapting based on the distance from the camera. So if you're closer to the camera, to the screen, the cone again will be smaller. So you have to really look in the direction of the screen. Only then the software will say, now it's a viewer. So that's how it works.
Bianca, I saw this question asked. I'm going to start answering it, but defer to you for the complete, which is, how do face masks affect the accuracy and ability to identify age, gender? And the short answer is it does affect it, obviously. I mean, it certainly does. I think this is what I wanted you to speak to, Bianca. How should they do that? I mean, how should they handle that in light of we still have masks on?
Yeah, so for if you start using the sample experiences that are in the bundle, you'll notice that for the face mask experience, we generally don't suggest to use the age and gender, indeed these triggers, or to kind of do the analysis in parallel, because the face masks do cover most of the face. So the accuracy goes down to maybe a threshold that where we wouldn't suggest using. So that's why we also have the separate experiences. So usually face mask, you can still use it. With face mask, you can still do the impression counting and viewer counting and all the other metrics that are relying on the face as a whole, but not on the specific features that are maybe related to more like gender and age and smile. Well, of course, smile is more difficult to do if your face is covered. So.
And actually, I see another question, Bianca, that we've been asked before. And so address this, the accuracy with Asian faces, Middle Eastern faces, because I think you had a lot of good to say about that.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, we get this asked a lot. So we try to, of course, we train on a large variety of faces. So our databases are not only like Caucasian or European faces. So we do cover a large spectrum to also indeed have like more Asian or Black faces and others, so that we're accurate across the board. So now with using deep learning, that's why That's what I mentioned, that we're using everything's based on deep learning. There's even less bias when it comes to the ethnicities, like differences in accuracy for different types of faces, because we can feed the network a lot of data, and then basically it takes into account the differences between these ethnicities. So it doesn't differ as much as you would think.
Yeah, that's great news. Good. We had an Intuiface customer saying, "Look, I already have analytics, I already have players. You know, can I still use the bundle? Can I still?" And of course, absolutely. The bundle was just intended to simplify, to kind of shortlist all the things you needed in one single purchase, just to make life easier. But if you already have some of the components, that's okay. It's doesn't change anything. So Bianca, here's a question about SIghtcorp versus OpenVINO, right? Because we did announce our OpenVINO integration about a year ago, so SIghtcorp integration is newer. And so somebody who knows Intuiface knows OpenVINO from with Intel's distribution. What's the trade-off? How do they compare?
Yeah, so OpenVINO, I think it's a really good framework for maybe getting like the first feel of computer vision and understanding kind of what the capabilities are. Of course, for us, audience measurement is like our bread and butter. So this is what we do all day. So our algorithms are also trained for multiple different scenarios, like retail, digital signage, but also like more one-to-one, one-to-many, like I explained. So it's much more of a production-ready software, right? It's really a plug and play. Whereas OpenVINO is more of a framework that you can either use to train your own algorithms. Other tech companies like us, they use a lot of OpenVINO as a kind of as a framework, but not necessarily maybe to use them as out of the box, because they're not as much of a commercial product as SIghtcorp creates.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest, OpenVINO is free, right? So
Right.
it's great. You also get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of it comes down to accuracy. And so there's just the extent, the amount of testing and teaching that SIghtcorp does is far more extensive than for OpenVINO. But it's also a commercial product, with its own license, and so there's the trade-off there. But certainly, if you're worried about accuracy, then SIghtcorp is far more reliable in that respect. There was a question about, can I tell it's the same person?
Mm-hmm.
So it saw me, I walked away, I'm back. Can you tell it's the same person? And the answer is no. As far as SIghtcorp is concerned, it's just two people. Is that correct? Right?
Right. So we don't do any kind of re-identification in this case, because that's the whole notion of it being anonymous. So if you were to really recognize people, then you have to store some sort of like identifiable data to be able to understand that that's again the same person. So indeed, it doesn't recognize people. If you leave for 5 minutes and then you come back, yes, you're going to be another person. There is face tracking that makes sure that you don't get assigned another ID while you're being detected. So yes, there is some sort of arbitrary ID number that you're assigned, which we only use for this tracking, so that you don't get there's only one person that's being detected at a time. But then once the person leaves, the face leaves, then the ID is it can be reassigned to more people the next day and the next day. So it's not specific to that face.
It is privacy by design. It would be bad if we could tell it was the same person,
Yeah.
right? The point is to be anonymous. There were a couple questions about the analytics. What I'm showing on screen right now is a dashboard consuming data produced by the dynamically triggered ads. What you're seeing is a pre-built dashboard created to expect the data generated by the experience I demonstrated. It's pre-built, but you can build anything you want. And so this is here so that it's ready to go. It's ready to read information from the running experience. and go through ad distribution, number of times the ad was played, total viewing time per ad, per gender. I mean, all these different slices and dices and things you can do with the data. We've pre-create this when you buy the bundle. When you buy the bundle, you will have access to this dashboard. You don't have to create it yourself, but you could create it yourself. There's no reason why you can't create your own variants, reorder it, rename it, maybe different language, right? Customize it. So lots of things you can do to make your own dashboard with your own data, and maybe combine it with other contextual information, like maybe the weather or something that you feel is relevant to understanding and engagement and how it is influenced by that context. So you have all that control, but when you buy the bundle, you get this pre-built dashboard to play with. Let's see. So there's a question about transgender, Bianca. I don't know if that's something you guys have tried yet.
No, that might be it's a tough question. I'm not sure how that would how the software would react to that, because of course we're it's being trained on images of like male, female, and then children and all that stuff. So by age categories. So there's not a lot of data from this category, I would assume. So
I think that might be the biggest issue. There's just not a big data set to work with. Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. Usually that's the case when we're talking about accuracy for these types of maybe like more specific types of audiences. Then it comes down to the availability of data. Yeah.
We're almost at the hour. We have a lot of people sticking around, so maybe we'll see if there's one or two more questions.
Actually, Jeff, we have one more question which I wanted to address from Dick. Any references or use cases with mask detection already? And on this one, I wanted to say that we released the bundle, the SIghtcorp and Intuiface bundle, what, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And we do have some ongoing projects, nothing either under NDA or nothing public that we can talk about. So no brands we can mention today. But we've seen a lot of interest on this bundle and on the technology we are making available here with this marriage between our two companies.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to also react to that question. So one of the examples of the projects that we're already are live are using kiosks, like basically digital kiosk at entrances to supermarkets, and basically showing the stop and go messages there before people enter, and then basically in real time showing the messages there and understanding then using the analytics again to understand what's the ratio between masks and no masks to make sure that they comply. The store owner wants to make sure that they're wearing the visitors are wearing masks. Yes, that's how it works.
If you can see on my screen, they're actually in DeepSight, there's that little box. You see that there next to my face? And what DeepSight's doing with the mask, it's a level of confidence, right? So there are many different ways. I mean, I could be going like this, right? And does that count? And so there's a confidence interval for how masked I am. And this is more like the 80s and 90s, so it's pretty confident. I'm actually running the face mask experience, or I can run the face mask experience. So this is it. And let me get my thing here, right? So this is a real-time experience. This is the face mask experience. It's happening in real time. It is like every 300 milliseconds, it's checking who's in front of the camera. And it says, look, this dude does not have a mask. You cannot approach. And then when I mask up, see, it's because I keep putting my hand in front of me. Then it says, oh, thanks for wearing a mask. Come on in, right? So that's how it works. It's pretty simple. This experience is configurable. You actually don't have to show the come on in. You don't have to. But you can test it out. That's the thing. You can test it out. You can pilot it in your office. You can pilot it in your store, in your facility, and give it a shot. That confidence interval, if I recall correctly, Bianca, is configurable. You can say, what level of confidence do you need to believe somebody is wearing a mask, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's ranges from 0 to 100. So that's the confidence. And in the, I believe in the experience, you can also set that up. So usually we suggest something around confidence above 80, like 0.80. Then it's really confident. But per use case, if they want it to be more strict, then you can go higher or lower. That
I mean,
depends.
you can see the default that we have in the experience is 70,
70.
which is a little low. It's a little low. And so it was a little uncertain if I was wearing a mask at times. So you want to maybe make it a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But just so that you don't want to have false positives, you'd rather have false negatives.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
On my side, I put green flags on all of them. So I think we answered all of them. If I
Good.
missed one, or if there is any additional question you want to ask, it's now or later by email.
In the
Yep.
meantime, you can download and evaluate Intuiface for free. You can download and evaluate DeepSight from SIghtcorp for free. Both of them have trials that enable you to experiment with them. You can download these experiences for free. When you purchase the bundle, you're also getting the dashboard, for example, you're getting other things. But at no cost, you can try out Intuiface, try out SIghtcorp, try out the experiences, use it with any camera. You can run them on the same Windows PC. I mean, there's really nothing preventing you from trying everything out yourself as soon as you hang up the webinar call here, right? So we'll see, going once, going twice. Any more questions? This is being recorded, so we'll share that as soon as it's ready. We'll include it. We have a new, our monthly newsletter is coming out Thursday. We will include the recording in our newsletter on Thursday. Everybody will get that. And somebody wants something for free. There's not a question, just somebody wants cheap stuff. And I agree, we should all have cheaper stuff. But we can talk about that offline. Hey, Bianca, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for everyone's attention and great questions. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this as much as we did. You had way too much fun with the demos.
I love my product. I love what DeepSight does, so I'm pretty thrilled. Hey, thanks everybody. Bianca, thank you. Seb, thank you for answering all those questions. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank
Take care.
you. Bye. Bye.